The evolution of science fiction films is a fascinating journey through cinematic history that spans across a century. In short, science fiction films have evolved from the early silent films to big blockbusters like Christopher Nolan's Interstellar.
Case, you ready?
Ready.
The genre continues to captivate audiences and offer a lens through which to explore the possibilities and challenges of the future. But what exactly defines a sci-fi picture? Science fiction can be tracked back all the way to the 1800s. It might even be one of the oldest genres of literature, if not the most popular, as it's not restricted to motion pictures. In fact, Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein is more often than not credited as being the first work of science fiction. Other works include Jules Verne's novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and H.G. Wells' novel The War of the Worlds. It's a genre of speculative fiction. Imaginative and futuristic concepts such as advanced science and technology, space exploration, time travel, parallel universes, and extraterrestrial life. These are the typical themes of a sci-fi. It's also been called the literature of ideas, and often explores the potential consequences of scientific, social, and technological innovations. The genre has evolved over the years from simple stories written for entertainment to complex and thought-provoking tales that explore the human condition and the future of our world. It's a genre that is constantly changing and expanding, and it is sure to continue to captivate and engage audiences for years to come. In 1902, director George Méliès had made one of the first ever recorded science fiction films in cinema history, A Trip to the Moon. The film tells the story of a group of astronomers who embark on a daring journey to the moon using a large cannon-propelled capsule. Led by a professor played by Méliès himself, the astronomers meet lunar inhabitants, including the famous man on the moon. Notable for its groundbreaking special effects and imaginative storytelling, A Trip to the Moon is a landmark in the history of cinema. It features hand-painted color sequences, elaborate set designs, and innovative techniques for its time. George Méliès' work in this film is celebrated for its creativity and innovation, and has had a lasting influence on the science fiction genre and filmmaking as a whole. During the next 2 decades, about 20 science fiction movies were made and released, but none of them had the lasting impact that Metropolis had. A classic German science fiction film directed by Fritz Lang, released in 1927. One interesting fact related to the film involves its iconic robot character, Maria. In the film, Maria is transformed into a lifelike robot by the mad scientist Rotwang. To pull this off, actress Brigitte Helm had to undergo a challenging and uncomfortable transformation process. She was fitted with a full bodysuit made of wood and metal, which weighed around 30 pounds. The suit was incredibly cumbersome, and Helm could only wear it for short periods due to the physical strain it placed on her. Despite the discomfort and difficulty of wearing the robot suit, however, Brigitte Helm's performance as Maria in Metropolis is still celebrated for its pioneering special effects and aesthetically pleasing visuals. Set in a dystopian future, the film takes place in a massive, sprawling city where the wealthy elite live in luxury above ground, while the oppressed working class toils away in the underground factories. The film thus explores themes of struggle among different classes in society, technology, and the consequences of unchecked industrialization. It is also notable for its commentary on social and political issues of the time, reflecting concerns about inequality and exploitation during a period of turmoil in Europe. While the film faced challenges upon its initial release, including censorships and cuts, it has since been restored and re-released in various versions, inspiring countless future filmmakers, artists, and characters like C-3PO from Star Wars.
Excuse me, sir, and my joints are...
Moving a little forward in time, we found ourselves in the 1950s, a decade where sci-fi grew exponentially as developments in technology such as nuclear energy and space exploration, coupled with the end of World War II, ignited the public's imagination surrounding the ideas of space, dystopia, alternate futures, and militarization. Themes like these carry limitless potential in the eyes of filmmakers all across the globe, resulting in films like The Day the Earth Stood Still in 1951. It's a film that got praised immensely for its subject matter. The story revolves around a flying saucer landing on Earth with a so-called gift for the president at the time. As you might have guessed, we humans didn't respond well to the offer, and well, you'll have to watch the film yourself to find out what exactly happens next. But after the movie's release, some journalists even believed it inspired Ronald Reagan to discuss uniting against an alien invasion in 1985. The 50s also introduced Universal's first 3D feature, It Came From Outer Space, which got nominated for the AFI's Top 10 Science Fiction Films list. Following the release and success of the film, 3D started to become more popular as Paramount followed up closely with their first 3D feature, Sangaree, in 1953. This short period in time is often referred to as the golden age of 3D, with sci-fi playing a key part in its success. As tension was rising around the world during the Cold War, the race to achieve spaceflight capability between the United States and Russia was fully underway. Needless to say, this time period heavily influenced the sci-fi genre. In 1968, 1 year before Neil Armstrong actually set foot on the moon, a director by the name of Stanley Kubrick debuted his film 2001: A Space Odyssey. It is often praised as one of the most important science fiction films because of its technical achievements. Kubrick hired actual spacecraft consultants who had assisted some of the major contractors in the aerospace industry and NASA with developing advanced space vehicle concepts as technical advisors on the film. They believed that the film would serve as a big screen advertisement for space technology. It centers around astronauts, scientists, and AI as they travel through space to investigate an alien-built structure on Jupiter. Not exactly how the actual space race concluded, but even 5 decades after the film's initial debut, some people claim that Kubrick himself actually helped NASA to stage the moon landing in 1969.
I kind of believe that they might have done some mocked-up fake photographs.
Whether or not any of this is true remains a mystery, but the fact is that 2001: A Space Odyssey would build a trend of space movies for years to come. Most notably, the biggest blockbuster franchises to follow were Star Wars and Aliens. Both show futuristic technology and themes that act out of reach in past societies. However, the new technology is becoming more and more like the ones shown in the old movies. The highly advanced lightspeed technology called warp speed, featured in Star Wars, was once called impossible. Still, scientists are looking to match this technology in today's society. The 80s are often considered as the decade where science fiction ruled over everything. Most of its biggest movies and books were sci-fi, and cyberpunk became the era's pop aesthetic. Blade Runner, released in 1982, did an outstanding job at creating a cyberpunk world. Directed by Ridley Scott, the film ultimately gained masterpiece status by taking all of its visual and musical magic and combining it with a complicated narrative asking big questions. Like, what is the meaning of life? Scott would later return to these questions in his following films Aliens and Prometheus, but at the time, narratives like these were unheard of, and if they were presented in a film, it was never done in a way like Blade Runner did.
Reading a magazine, you come across a full-page nude photo of a girl.
Is this testing whether I'm a replicant or a lesbian, Mr. Deckard?
Just answer the questions, please.
But it didn't take long before blockbuster masterminds like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas fine-tuned the art of sci-fi with films like E.T., Twilight Zone, and Star Wars dominating the decade's top 10 grossers. And as mentioned before, the genre wasn't just exploding in the movie industry. In the book world, it was hard to beat multi-million copy bestseller Stephen King, whose success in sci-fi horror also rewrote the rules for literary fame. Towards the end of the 90s, the industry had another groundbreaking film hit the theaters. Out of all the sci-fi films released over the past century, The Matrix was the first one to make people actually think they could be living in the world the movie portrayed for real. The film ticked all of the science fiction boxes when it came to visuals and special effects, but those are hardly what made the film stand out. Very few people were able to combine philosophy with science and attract attention like The Matrix did. Directors Lana and Lily Wachowski were able to raise a super creative what-if narrative about the world we perceive on a daily basis and question the elements we call real.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real?
The film had audiences think about its plot and narrative throughout its entire runtime and still raises thought-provoking questions today. Or does it? Maybe this entire script is a lie. Maybe you're not actually watching this video right now, but doing something else entirely. I guess we'll never know. The 2000s were a weird and wild time for movies. Technology was pushing films into a new era, society was rapidly shifting due to events like 9/11 and the Great Recession, and corporations began to spread throughout every aspect of culture, leading to a decade of endless dystopian and post-apocalyptic movies and TV shows. Science fiction was ground zero for this new style, with the new genre shifting away from grand and fanciful space operas and instead focusing on issues people were becoming scared of. Climate change, disease, drugs, and warfare took the center stage in the genre, making the 2000s an era of decidedly more depressing sci-fi films. One notable example of this is The Day After Tomorrow. The disaster movie is an exaggerated take on what happens after the planet experiences too much global warming, altering the ocean's currents and causing epic disasters around the globe. It's both a cheesy and fun disaster movie while also feeling eerily more relevant as natural disasters continue to be amplified by climate change. It was also one of the first major pieces of media that got the average person talking about climate change and its potential dangers, making the movie an important piece of history. Oh, and did we mention Stephen King yet? Because even though his books were selling like crazy, the 2000s were filled with lackluster film adaptations from the writer. That was until the adaptation of The Mist in 2007. The film perfectly blends sci-fi and psychological horror as it portrayed humans and their actions to be just as scary as the monsters of the film. Though the movie was only a moderate box office hit, it found more success in the rental market and remains one of the most popular Stephen King adaptations thanks to its towering monsters and shocking finale. But this wouldn't really be a sci-fi video if we didn't include what is considered to be one of the best animated sci-fi films ever made. Pixar Studios was known for its beautiful animation at the time, but as this was the first time the studio had delved into the genre of science fiction, they got to apply their wonderful animation skills to the vastness of space, and for arguably the first time, it allowed them to bring a sense of grand scale to their films. The team also had a massive assist from the legendary cinematographer Roger Deakins, who worked as a visual consultant on the film. The environments created for this film don't feel like those of an animated film. They felt like they really existed and were lived in. The film has a vibrant but realistic use of color, which makes its different locations feel worlds away from each other. Whether it's the clean, sleek and futuristic feels of spaceships, or the sepia-toned and rustic atmosphere of an Earth ravaged by pollution, the world of WALL-E is one that doesn't feel too far off from the one we know. It's a cautionary tale of what could become of humanity if it continues on its current trajectory. It's set in the 29th century and much of its plot centers around humanity trying to go back to the way things used to be. As a result of immense pollution and an utter failure to clean up the mess, Earth is rendered uninhabitable, which forces humanity to migrate into space.
Everybody ready to say goodbye to our solar system? To our galaxy?
It almost seems as if we're slowly catching up to the genre, making it more and more science rather than fiction. What was once called science fiction when the genre was born may now simply be a reality. But with films like Interstellar, we're reminded why the genre works so well and how it excites us about the unknown.